Can we welcome Pastor Joe Martin to the podium?
Good morning, everyone. I tell you, this weather is Dallas's payback to the Super Bowl committee for not being in the Super Bowl, isn't it? Steve, last week I was at spoke and shared my testimony on January the 22nd for the March for Life, which is downtown outside in the parking lot behind the federal courthouse. And it was warmer outside that day than it is inside here this morning. So welcome to Texas. I love Texas. January 22nd, 1973, the Roe v. Wade decision made it legal for women to have abortions in the United States. And since that time, there have been 50 million abortions, at least that they know of, in the United States. That means that 100 million adults were and have been parties to abortion in the United States. Let me just break that down for those of you who live in nice communities all over the Metroplex. You can go up and down your street, and 1 in 4 people who live on your street have been directly involved in an abortion. I'm one of those people, and that's why I'm here this morning. I grew up on a farm in Tennessee, and after graduating from high school, I got admitted to the Harvard of the South, Ole Miss, and went to the University of Mississippi. And there, as a sophomore, I began dating a girl, and we got engaged my senior year, beginning of my senior year. And by December of my senior year, we were sure that we weren't supposed to get married. We broke up. And so the spring semester of my senior year came around, and in April, this girl called me, and she said, I need to talk to you. And I said, sure. So just a few weeks, actually 2 weeks before I graduated, we sat down together and we talked, and she said, I'm pregnant, and you're the father. I said, well, we need to go back then and revisit getting married. She said, no, we don't. I've talked to my sister, and my roommate's going to go out to Dallas this summer. And I'm going to go out there this summer, and I'm going to have an abortion. I had never thought about coming to Dallas ever before. In fact, I had been accepted to Vanderbilt Law School, and I was headed to law school in Nashville. And so at that point, I just said to her, well, I'll go with you. And so on Saturday, May the 9th, 1981, I graduated from college. On Sunday, May the 10th, 1981, I packed all my belongings in my Oldsmobile Cutlass. And on Monday morning, May the 11th, 1981, I took my ex-girlfriend, ex-fiancée, to an abortion clinic at Royal Lane in Central, where she had an abortion. I dropped her off at 10 o'clock. I picked her back up at noon. And, of course, she was broken, crying. We tried to make it the rest of that summer, but things didn't work out so well for us. She went back to school at Ole Miss. She was a junior. I was a senior. And I got a job here in Dallas. The reason I didn't go back to law school was I just felt like Mayor Leopard wanted to be a politician. And I figured somebody is going to dig up the fact I'm a conservative politician, politically, but yet I have this liberal lifestyle. So I went to work in the oil and gas business. And by 1983, I'd been here for a couple of years, and on February the 3rd, which is my anniversary day, February the 3rd, 1983, I accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior right here in Dallas, 28 years ago to this moment. And I had a marvelous conversion to Christ, and the Lord really changed my life in so many different ways. At the end of 1984, I met my wife, my present wife, Nancy. And Nancy and I had a short courtship, and we got married in April of 1985. And during our courtship, I found out that Nancy also, as an 18-year-old, had an abortion. And so we were able to talk about it, visit about it. at that point, really nobody really knew except a few close friends. And so we were able to talk about it and visit about it, that both of us had been victims, if you will, of abortion. And I say victims in the sense that, we made our own decisions about all that, but in the sense that, hey, this law, the Roe versus Wade, made it possible for us to do that easily, secretly. It wasn't long after I'd gotten saved that I went and I had a meeting with a lady in Memphis. A friend of mine wanted me to get to know. And this lady, during our first meeting, visited with me a little bit about my relationship with the Lord. And she was talking to me about having a deeper walk with God. And I was very resistant to her. And during the conversation, she looked at me and she said, "You got a really serious problem." I said, "Well, what's that?" And by word of knowledge, the Lord had spoken to her. She said, "You've never forgiven yourself for that abortion that you had in college." And when she said that, though I knew she didn't know it, she had no knowledge of that, the tears just jumped out of my eyes. And I realized that there was a God in heaven who really cared about this and who really wanted to redeem that issue and restore my life. So when Nancy and I got married, I felt forgiven by all of it, but I still had the idea that inside there's something more to happen. And so Nancy and I went on our honeymoon in in April of 1985, and we got back. We'd been back about a month, and we found out she was pregnant. And on January the 22nd, 1986, we had our firstborn son on the anniversary date of the Roe versus Wade decision. Now, the reason I say all that is to say this, is that Jesus is able not only to save, but he's able to forgive and to restore. And the day that he was born, on the anniversary date of the Roe versus Wade decision, the Lord made it really, really clear to us in that moment that he was born that he was a part of a generation that was going to stand up and defy that ruling. You see, his generation has over 50 million missing friends, relatives, and associates. 50 million that are missing from that whole generation. And I'm here this morning really to say that there are probably people in this room that you've been a party to an abortion, either directly or indirectly. And I just want to tell you this, that Jesus not only can forgive you from all that, but he can set you free from all that. And he can reconcile and restore all that's gone on. He did for us. And if he did it for us, he can do it for you. Now, and I don't mention that for those of us in this room together, but I mention that to say this. There are people that you work with, there are neighbors that you have, there's relatives that you have that undoubtedly have been touched by this tragedy. Undoubtedly been touched by it. And I just want to I hope that you will take what you've heard this morning, as I have shared this with you, and open up a conversation with them about it. And as you open that conversation up, the hope in my heart is that you would be an instrument of God's grace to bring forgiveness and healing and restoration to their lives. It's been a real pleasure to share this with you. Bill Noble, my friend here for 28 years, was in our wedding. He was the first person that I actually told about this. But he was the guy that God used as an instrument of grace for me to open up with someone else about it so that God could then begin to work in my life through it. If he healed me, he can heal you. If he healed me, he can use you as an instrument of grace in someone else's life. God bless you. Thank you for letting me share that this morning.